remember where you were at, what you were doing, what things were like when you first experienced, when you first saw this brand new world open up to you in the form of Gear Second, man. In my case, it left such a strong impression on me that I still have the bootleg poster with Gear Second in Spanish that I have in my room. That just, as a fan of transformations growing up, from the giant robots to the Super Saiyans to the Kingdom Heart Keyblades, like, I just loved it. Still to this day, inject a transformation and course it through the veins, and I love transformations, man. I just didn't expect One Piece to go down that route. I didn't, man. And so when Gear Second was revealed to me and I saw the craziness in that wonderful, I first experienced it through the Kaizoku fan subs. So going from the green lettering and text in his original attacks to now having it be red, you know it's real when just the color change of his attacks can get you hype. You know what I mean? So, seeing Jet Pistol and it's the Jet Bazooka, and then following that up with the tease to the Gear Third. And that's whenever everything really started shifting and making a change in terms of this is what fruits are capable of. Because we had seen so many different fruits and the craziness that comes with them, but now we were starting to see how far could you go by taking the next steps. And we started seeing Oda's real creativity when it comes to utilizing even something like the Gomu Gomu no Mi. And one of my favorite things about the Gears is that not only does it spicing everything up in terms of a variety of combat, in terms of the different types of attacks that Luffy can now use, but I think more importantly, it served to raise the stakes. And in an arc where, in Enies Lobby, where the stakes were already at an all-time high, to add the level of Luffy can't stay in Gear Second or in Gear Third after we got to see what that was, turning him into a smaller version of himself that's really defenseless. But in Gear Second, whenever you get to find out that this thing is not only killing him, but he can't be in it for very long, but he needs to use it. It's like it's not I might be able to use it. We saw what happens when he does not use Gear Second against Lucci. Lucci pwned him. He needs Gear Second. But the fact that it can kill him, and also the fact that he can't be in it for very long, had the stakes so high that when he gets out of it, and Usopp delivers that speech, and Luffy gets back up in one of the most epic and hype and bone-chilling and goosebumps serving moments, when you see Lucci and then in the background you see Luffy in the stands, and he lets out that scream, dude. Nah, man, that's peak. That is peak greatness. You know what I mean? But that is the beauty and what makes the Gears so special. And to this very day, with stuff like Bound Man and Snake Man, we see the restrictions and limitations of those. When he's in them, he's going in. But the thing is he can't stay in them for very long. So it automatically raises the stakes because you're like, yo, he needs to finish this battle as soon as possible within these forms. And it was really cool when Gear Second and Gear Third were first introduced, and now, of course, with the Gear Fourth. It is how Oda continues to keep the battles interesting when it comes to Luffy, and always manages to one-up himself. Because when I first got into the series, one of the things that really drew me to Luffy and his battles against his opponents, and why I always looked forward to how he was going to take out the final antagonist of the arc, regardless of what it was that he always had something different for each opponent. It was always keeping it fresh, and it was something I was not used to at the time, because first and foremost, I didn't expect you to be able to do so much with a rubber ability. But to have so much variety in terms of combat, I was like, son, this is nuts. And then you double that with Gear Second and Gear Third, because now you can not only utilize techniques you used in the past, like, for example, with a Jet Gatling. Like, Jet Gatling is absolutely crazy. Jet Bazooka and all different variations. Now we're adding a variety of, he can now do this while inside of Gear Second. Now these attacks that seem like they wouldn't work anymore, now Luffy's making them work again because of the addition of Gear Second. And it calls for some super epic stuff, man. I'll never forget how obsessed I was with Gear Second in terms of always wanting to see it. I was just like, dude, how is he going to pull it out in Thriller Bark? How is he going to pull it out in Amazon Lily and Sabaody and Impel Down and Marineford, especially when stuff started getting really, really crazy, right? And we know that he had to stay in that form or in Gear Third in order to just survive, especially with all the top tiers that were in like Impel Down and Marineford. It's like, bro. And it cost for some of the most epic moments in the entire series. And then, you know, Gear Third for a while really was my least favorite. And I think it kind of still is. But I think one thing that Oda did with Gear Third that raised my interest in that ability by like 50-fold to where they're all on like an equal playing field, all in the same tier for sure now, was the addition of having Gear Third combined with armament hockey. When Oda first introduced that in Fishman Island, and we were able to see, you know, stuff like the elephant gun, the elephant gatling, I now understood. I was like, man, like every time I see one of these things, and it feels like it can't get any more goat, it just does. It does. Because when you have a massive fist like that combined with armament hockey, it's gonna do damage. Not only is it gonna do damage, it just looks dope. It just looks super cool. And I love how Oda did like the wrestling thing of putting things over. You know, you gotta keep a move strong. You know, growing up as a wrestling fan, that's one of the things that I learned. Like, in order to keep something special or have something special, you have to keep it safe. You have to keep it to where you only use it in certain situations against very strong opponents. And so to have the first two arcs in post time skip end with a major blow from Gear Third in with armament hockey, with like the elephant gun, the elephant gatling, of course the red hawk and the greatness there, but the elephant gatling right against Noah, that was huge. Like, holy flagnards. And then you switch over to Punk Hazard and you get the Grizzly Magnum, and it's like, okay, man, Gear Third is nasty. And it's like, it's stuff like that, you know, the way that the gears are able to consistently evolve. Like, it feels like we get to see Luffy's growth in terms of combat with how it is that he utilizes his gears. And because he is a combat genius, whenever you get to see stuff like the Grizzly Magnum, which is basically like a super souped up bazooka, right? That is the version of the Jet Bazooka or the Gomu Gomu no Bazooka just in Gear Third. And it's super dope. Same thing with the Elephant Gatling. That is Jet Gatling just on a way bigger scale. And it's stuff like that that just keeps it very fresh, and that makes me just adore the gears, because you never know what you're gonna get when you start a Luffy fight now. And it was so dope, and it still is incredibly dope, like even more dope than ever, honestly, especially with the stuff we're seeing right now in Roof Piece. But I'll never forget, and this was when I truly started realizing just how much I love these gears. I'll never forget, and this was one of my favorite moments in the entire series, and I honestly think it still is, man. When Luffy comes back and picks up the hat, we start returning to Sabaody, and we see all the craziness going down there with like the fake straw hats. But when Sentomaru shows up with PX5 and they run into Luffy, and you're like, okay, what is he gonna do here? Now we got to see one of the most incredible observation hockey moments for me, where he just too slow. But what he does after that left a strong impression on me, because that's when I realized Oda knows what he's doing when it comes to this power system, right? He goes in, and with just one hand, before, it took everything. He had to enter the stance, because if not, Gear Second is not happening, because he needs to pump up both legs in order to cause the thing to start. Now Luffy has grown to the point, which is why what I was saying earlier in terms of these abilities, the gears allow us to see where Luffy is at that point in time. Because when he does this, and with just one pump of the hand, he's already in Gear Second, that's when you knew that it was real. And every time that he did that, both there and in Fishman Island, always had me super, super hyped, man. And it was just crazy. The amount of different things that he was able to do with Gear Second and Gear Third, combining the two and whatnot, it was always so much fun. But then we get into Gear Fourth, and I'll never forget, you know, Gear Fourth is really special to me because I feel like, whereas Gear Second represents the part of my journey when I was catching up to the series, and then I transitioned over to the manga, Gear Third represents, at least for me, you know, post time skip, you know, those first couple arcs of how cool it was to see it combined with armament hockey, and getting to learn more about armament hockey because of Gear Third. And I love it for that. But Gear Fourth is so strongly connected to my journey on the YouTube channel that I cannot, you know, regardless of what it is, the Bounce Man, Snake Man, or Tank Man. All of them are connected to the channel in some way, shape, or form. With chapter 783 and that crazy cliffhanger back on the old channel, and I'll never forget, man, when chapter 784 dropped after a 2-week break, and I sat on the other side of this room. I didn't do anything else that morning. I woke up, brushed them, came back in the room, and we were in like swimwear. There was nothing else took priority that day but seeing what Gear 4th was, and it surpassed all expectations. I think Bounce Man is still my favorite. I mean, it's tough because I have so many memories with Gear 2nd, so many with Gear 3rd, but I just love Gear 4th so much. And I think another thing that's really cool about it is about the video game thing. You know, growing up as a Dragon Ball fan, getting the next Dragon Ball game was always really dope because you'd be like, okay, this one's gonna have Super Saiyan 2 or Super Saiyan 3 or Super Saiyan 4 or Super Saiyan Blue, you know, later on and when Super came out, right? It was always those things like, okay, I'm gonna buy this Dragon Ball game specifically to use this new form that Goku and Vegeta or whatever have. And now we have that with the One Piece games where I'll never forget when I first popped in Power Warriors and you start off in Return to Sabaody and I'm like, oh my god, I could use Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd. Popping in Burning Blood for the first time, and I was like, Gear 4th, son, being able to use that when I first popped in Power Warriors 4 and Snake Man. And so it's connected to all that stuff, man, and it's super cool. But going back to Gear 4th, seeing Bounce Man, how crazy that was. Seeing how Doflamingo was going into that fight and how Luffy was able to turn it around. But once again, the stakes being raised and him not being able to utilize this for a very long period of time. So when he's actually in it, it's nuts. It's nuts, man. And it's just super dope from the stance to the bounciness and the different amounts of things that he can do within Gear 4th. Not only just in Bounce Man, but then you switch over to Tank Man in an extremely offensive form, and that was against Cracker. But Snake Man for me, man, I'll never forget when he finished off, I think it was, what was it, chapter 894 with the Gear 4 Snake Man. And then 895 comes out. I stayed up for that chapter. I almost never stay up for chapters. I stayed up for that one, son. I was like, nah, man. I'm staying up until like 3 in the morning for this damn chapter. And it was so worth it, bro. You know, finally seeing Snake Man, just the flowing hair. Episode 870 did that so well, man. Seeing the flowing hair and the brand new attacks. Basically a combination of Gear 4th and Gear 2nd. Because what I love so much about Gear 2nd was the speed. And that's also what really drew me to Gear 4th was not only has Luffy physically changed and he's huge, and the way he described it was he had to become this huge in order to battle all the massive monsters that were within his training, right? Back on Ruskaina, whenever he's training with Rayleigh and then he was left by himself for all those months, and he needed to be big enough in order to combat the massive monsters that he was facing. And so to come up with this concept of Gear 4th, have it be such a great balance when it comes to power and speed, but then sacrificing the power for more speed in Snake Man, and the incredible amount of attacks coming out from the Black Mamba to the King Cobra to the Jet Culverin. I mean, just so many different attacks and so many different things that he's able to use within these forms. And I think that's why I will always love the gears. And whatever gears come later on in terms of Gear 5th or Gear 6th or whatever they end up being, whenever they end up coming out, whatever it is, I can always expect it to be great because of the ones that we've gotten so far. Because when Oda gives Luffy a gear, he gives him a gear and then he evolves that gear through time. Like, it's not like, okay, this transformation is cool, we're doing it for one thing, and then next time it's going to be the same thing. Nah, man. Every time we saw Gear 2nd, it was something new. Gear 2nd post-time skip combining with Ornament Hockey, Observation Hockey, and seeing the different amounts of things that he could do, staying in Gear 2nd for a larger amount of time. You're like, yo, Luffy's on a different level. He doesn't have to, you know, when he leaves Gear 3rd now, he doesn't go into the kid form. Like, he stays in regular base form now after using Gear 3rd. Like, it doesn't exhaust him. Something with Gear 2nd. It's always an implication and implier of where Luffy is in terms of from a power standpoint, and it's super dope, man. I love the system. I love the different the variety of skills that he can use with the gears. You know, spicing up the variety of different attacks, and it's always extremely interesting whenever he goes into a battle with one of the major antagonists, with a Caesar Clown, the Hodies, the Doflamingos, you know, Katakuri, and now with Kaido, it's like, how is he going to use the gears and the combination of gear second, gear third, gear fourth to be able to take out this opponent. And it's cause for now, it looks like he's saving, or Oda makes Luffy save the major attacks for the final antagonist. So seeing how he has grown with gear second and gear third, even with Wano, right? Whenever you get to see the Red Hawk as like a regular my man's just using Red Hawk to take out Hold'em. You know what I mean? Like, yo, Hold'em. Red Hawk for Hold'em goes in, uses the sumo slap, utilizing gear third in a sumo battle. Like, these things that took him so long or to master, now he's just, pie. Goes and utilizes Elephant Gun on Kaido, and then proceeds to go into gear fourth, not tired at all, and starts going ham. It's stuff like that that makes the gears so satisfying. And I love that stuff, man. I not only love it because, like I said, transformations are my thing, but because of the way that Oda utilizes the variety of attacks and raising the stakes because these gears exist. The fact that he can't stay in them for too long, we know what it is to go into one of these forms now. And at the very least, when it comes to gear fourth being the new one, we know that he can't stay in it for too long, especially when combined with Ryo. So it's like it raises the stakes every time he goes into it. We know how strong he is. We know he goes ham when he goes into gear fourth, bro. And all of us are just speculating now, like, yo, how is it going to be when he combines gear second, gear third, gear fourth with the advanced conkers, with the real hockey? It's like, son, the variety and stuff, it's always so much fun when you get to combine abilities. But in this series where there is hockey and the gears and what can be done with the two, it causes for the most fun and interesting combat sequences and possibilities that you can imagine, man. And it's so dope that the main protagonist has all of these different things to pick from. Like, in any different fight, Oda can be like, all right, I want to use Red Hawk, or I want to use the Elephant Gatling, or I want to whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I want to use the King Cobra, or maybe soon whenever we see Snake Man again, we're going to see some brand new Snake Man attack that just combines certain things, or something crazy, right? Like, we have not seen the fullest extent out of the gears, and that's what makes it so much fun, man, because all of us want gear fifth, but my man's hasn't even mastered gear fourth, and like, let alone, we've only seen Tank Man once, Snake Man once, like, can you imagine next time we see those? Can you imagine he starts going Omnitrix style, switching between all of them at will? Like, he goes into gear second in one panel, the next panel's in gear third, the next panel's in gear fourth, the next panel's in gear fourth Snake Man. Like, the possibilities are nuts. And I think that's what makes this form so much fun, is that not only the content that we've gotten so far is so much fun to read through or watch, especially in the way the anime handles the sequences with like the sound effects with the gears, the jet engine sound. Like, it's super cool, man. And whatnot. But it's also about thinking about the possibilities of the future and what these abilities can do later on against the major top tiers in the story, like what's currently happening with Kaido and Big Mom, right? And it just always causes for awesome moments and epic moments. And I feel like so many of our greatest memories with this series, at least for me, are connected to the gears, the evolution of the gears, and seeing what they can do against certain opponents, the revelation of the fact that those things even exist, and just how far Luffy can take them, man. And I love it. I love the gear system. I'm so happy that Oda introduced it, because it is something that not only served to spicing up the combat of the story, but also just made me a bigger fan because, dude, I mean, come on. Do you know how much merchandise I've bought because of the gears in terms of just games or posters or in Treasure Cruise or in any of these things, right? Like, it's the gears, man. Anytime a new transformation come out, you're like, I gotta get that now, man. It's super dope. I absolutely love the system, and I hope, or not only, and I shouldn't, hope is not even the right word. I can't wait, rather, to see where he takes the gears next. Whether it be the mastery of gear fourth or a gear fifth. Regardless of where he takes it, I'm all here for it, man. Let me know what your favorite memories with the gears are, why it is that you enjoy the gears, and if you wouldn't mind sharing what your favorite gear is. In my case, like I said, I have a lot of memories with gear second, but I think gear fourth is my favorite, man. I mean, just listen, dude. When you get to pick from a pool of I mean, I know we've only seen Tank Man once, but between Bounce Man and Snake Man, I love those two forms so much, bro. I adore them. There's just so much hype packed into those two transformations, from the flowing hair and the fast attacks of Snake Man to the bounciness of Bounce Man and all the different things that he can do within that form. I just love me some Gear Force, man. I truly do. But yo, I heard it's awesome of a day. Take care. Gotta love the gears, bro.